Hey, my friends, happy Sunday. So good to see you guys. Now, last week I told you we were going to start a brand new unit and we are ready to travel around the world. All right, so our first country that we're going to this week is Brazil. So if we're in Nashville, not sure where you guys are, you might be anywhere in this world, but if you're in Nashville, that's where I am, we would fly all the way down to this big pink section here. That is Brazil. Now, we're not just going to Brazil, but we're going to a very special place in Brazil. We're going to the Amazon rainforest. Wow. Have you guys heard of that before? Have you ever heard of the Amazon River? Now, you've heard of Amazon, I know, because you get boxes that show up at your door. That's not the same thing, all right? But it means big, right? And so the Amazon River is the most voluminous. That means it holds the most water of any river in the whole world, all right? So huge, 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 huge river. So I thought I would tell you about a little trip that my son, Isaiah, went on down the Amazon River. And he went with Miss Cora, who is our missions director, and a bunch of people from TVC with an organization called JMI, Justice and Mercy International. And they go and serve the people along the Amazon River. So to get there, how do you think they got there? It's a river. They had to take a boat. And the boat looked a lot like this. All right, so they have to go down a boat. It's the only way to get to these people is going by boat. And so they got in the boat, and I have a couple of pictures. I hope you guys can see them. When they got there, there's a picture of the river. Isn't that huge? And that's the boat they went on. That was a little bit smaller one than the model. They have got about 3 boats now that they take. And so that's a picture of that. Here's when it was on a rainy day. On a rainy day, they had to put blue tarps up. No windows, so they had to put blue tarps up to get through and not get totally wet the whole time. And then here they are. What do you think they sleep on in a riverboat? Do you think they have bunk beds? Well, they're kind of stacked, but guess what they're stacked in? Hammocks. Isaiah loves to sleep in a hammock, whether he's in a boat or at home. So he loved sleeping in a hammock, and around the hammocks they would have mosquito nets, because they were just out in open air. Have you guys ever taken a vacation where you slept in a hammock? Me either, but it sounded really fun, and he loved going on this trip. So I'm just gonna tell you some things that I learned from him about this trip. Now, one of the cool things about the Amazon rainforest are its animals. All right, some pretty unique ones. They have boa constrictors. Here's Isaiah holding a boa constrictor. And now, the funny thing is, this was kind of a petting zoo that they went to, right? But the petting zoo was on, what do you think? On boats, right. They went on a petting zoo on boats. All right, so here he is holding the boa constrictor. They have all kinds of animals, spider monkeys, capuchin, parrots, and macaws. Do you know what those are like? Do you guys ever see the movie Rio? Yeah, those beautiful, beautiful birds. I know they have them at the Nashville Zoo too, so look for those. And then in the river, there's some interesting animals like piranha. Do you know what piranha are? That looks like a tiny little fish. Isaiah's caught bigger fish than that. This was a tiny little fish, but the teeth were so sharp, they could chew you up. All right, so there is Isaiah catching a piranha, and they went fishing for piranha, and on the same day, they went fishing for piranha in the river, right? And then they went to a different part of the river, but the same water, and they went swimming. And Isaiah said, that's a little nerve-wracking thinking about going in the same water as those piranha. But where they went swimming, there was these very special dolphins. And the dolphins are different than the dolphins you might see when you go to the beach. These dolphins start out gray. All right, so when they come out, that's kind of what you normally see a dolphin, gray, right? But as they get older, they turn pink. Isn't that cool? And he said he got to swim with these dolphins. And what the jungle guides told them is if you're swimming with the dolphins, you don't have to worry about the piranha because the dolphins keep them away from you. Pretty cool. God has created such awesome animals. I love that how they work together inside this big giant river. There's animals that will protect you and be with you and swim with you or eat you up over here. All right, so totally different kinds of animals. But I thought those dolphins were so pretty and so beautiful. One other animal that I really liked, and this is one of my favorite pictures, is here's Isaiah with a baby sloth. Isn't it cute? There's the baby. And then this is my favorite picture he brought back. Isaiah with a baby girl sloth. You could tell by the pink bow on his head. Her head, sorry. I love that picture. Where else do you get to go and meet a baby sloth right out in the jungle on a boat, right? All right, well, that's about some of the animals. And the people there, they use the river for everything. They wash in it, they swim in it, they fish in it, they use the water for cooking. And the water, it's pretty warm in places. Actually, in Brazil there, it's very warm because it's very close to the equator. You guys know what the equator is? Right? Yeah. So we're going to talk more about that next week too, about the equator, something really interesting. But it's really warm there, and they have 2 seasons. They have the warm season and the rainy season, which is also warm, he said. So children there, they go to school like you guys, but there's not always enough schools. And so, but they get to school, guess how they get to school? You're right. They take a school boat. A school boat. So have you ever been waiting out for a bus or seen kids traveling on a bus? They go out and they wait for the boat to come. And even the littlest kids know how to paddle canoes and get around because there's not very many roads in the jungle there. So they go and they take boats everywhere. And so even like your younger brothers and sisters would know how to paddle a canoe. Food. You wonder about food there? We're going to get through some of these fun facts. The food, there's one food that's really interesting. It's called manioc. And it's kind of like a potato or a root vegetable, right? But this is really kind of interesting. The moms really know how to cook. And I think from generation to generations, it's been passed down because if you cook this right, it's delicious. And Isaiah said they used it for pancakes and they used it for bread and all kinds of different things, just chopped up in stews, whatever. But if you don't cook it right, it's poison. All right, so getting your food from a jungle could be very tricky, right? There's no grocery stores. They get the food either from the river or in the jungle, which grows in the jungle. And so that vegetable, they have to make sure they know how to cook it right or it's poison and it could really, really harm people. So those moms, they know how to cook and they know how to care for their children and they take care of things. Now, there's some things that are not so fun about the Amazon too. And that was one of the reasons why Isaiah got to go on this trip. JMI, they take people down to help the people in the rainforest because they're called the forgotten people. Could you imagine that? But they're so far out in the jungle, the only way to get to them is by boat. And so they're called the forgotten people. Now, do you think God forgot about them? No, certainly not. He knows them and he loves them. But the people of the world have kind of forgotten those people. And so what JMI does is help build churches, help build up pastors and help them to be able to go and serve the people out in the jungle. And so Isaiah's trip, he got to go and he had to help build a church. And it was almost like they took a mini TVC Kids service to the jungle. All right, so he was leading worship. He plays guitar and sings, and so he was leading worship. And they worked and they built churches. They physically built. They did carpentry, and they helped meet the people. And they gave them Bible lessons, and they played games with the kids. And they got to do all kinds of really strong things to build up the church in these tiny, tiny little towns in the jungle. And one of the things Isaiah brought back, here's a picture of one of their churches. All right, do you see how beautifully clean it is? He's like, first off, if you see the windows, there's no window glass. It's just open. Either the shutters are closed or it's open. So it's all open air. And he's like, look at the floor, how pristinely clean it is. The people really valued their churches. All right, they knew that it was something special to have a church in their community. And he said, look at the floor, how clean it is, especially when this is the road to the church. This is the main road in that village. All right, there's no asphalt, there's no clean roads. It's just dirt. And so the people are walking through dirt, but they make sure they keep their church clean because they value that so much. And when Isaiah was there, they actually got to work on building a church. So there they are doing some carpentry. And so they're trying to build churches all throughout the jungle there for people to be able to go and worship, because they're so far out in the jungle that some of the people have never even heard about Jesus. And so there they are out in the jungle telling people about the Lord. So there's a couple other things that are some not so good news. There's not very many doctors there, but I did hear that JMI just built a boat that has a little portion of it meant for medical supplies. And so diseases and things that would be things that we could cure so fast here in America, people there are very sick with them. And so having a boat now that can go and take some medical supplies and help the people that way, that is also a great thing that they're doing. I hope you guys will think about what it would be like to live in a jungle. Now, one of the biggest things is if you live on a river like that. Have you ever lived on or seen a river when it overflows its banks, right? I lived on a little teeny tiny river when I was growing up, and it would overflow the banks, and sometimes a fish would get stuck on it and stuff. Well, in the jungle there, it overflows so high. This is a picture of Isaiah in front of a big tree. So Isaiah is about 6 foot high, right? So here's the water line way up here. That's where the water goes to. That means that their homes get flooded. And that's why they built the churches way high up on stilts. But the pastors have to go and help the people and find them on boats. And I know TVC helped buy a boat, a little motorboat one time for the people there. So the pastors could go and help the people. And they get to where they all are very close. There's not enough space outside of the water. So that's just another challenge they face, that it floods every single year there. And so not like in Nashville where there's a 100-year flood. Every single year, places get flooded and they have to build these places. So, when you go on a missions trip, we want to tell people about Jesus. But you know what else we want to do? We want to help their needs. And so that's what JMI is doing. That's what Isaiah got to do, and go help them help them build churches where they can be safe. Help them build churches where they can come and hear about the Lord. Help them with their practical needs like medical needs and food and things that they need. All right, you guys? So that's a little bit. I wish I had more time to tell you more and more about Brazil, and especially about the Amazon rainforest. Have your mom and dad look up JMI, Justice and Mercy International, on the internet, and read about these people. Read about these people that are going and serving, and about the jungle people there that are going, and the pastors that are serving their people so very well. I love that TVC gets to support this mission. I love that my son got to go on this mission trip, and I hope that you guys will look into it more. Think about those people. Remember, we will not forget them. God did not forget them, and we will not forget them. All right, you guys, another country next week, and I will see you. Have a great week.